What was your "this person is on another level of stupid" moment? Dude burned down his convenience store for an insurance claim and stopped the milk and bread deliveries a day before. Here's to caring for the criminal world. Didn't wanna inconvenience the milk and bread companies. Demolished my right foot and a bunch of other shit in a motorcycle crash and had to have the top of my foot removed. Guy I worked with asked me when it would grow back. I explained that the skin and stuff was going to have to be grafted, but the tendons and bones that had been removed were gone forever. He looked me dead in the eye and asked why don't they just cut the whole ducking thing off and let it grow back. Going through security and the person says I need to show a different form of ID. I ask why, because I gave them my driver's license. They say I need a US document like a green card or something. I'm a US citizen. Then I realized. I explained how District of Columbia is long for DC, like Washington DC, as in the capital of our country. I got a bad grade in geography in high school. My teacher kept trying to push me and suggested I talk to my parents about it. I told my mom I was failing geography and she said, how ducking stupid can you really be, Justin? How do you fail geography? It's just shapes. I'll never forget that one. Edit. Thank you all for the upvotes. I've started sharing some of my true stories like this one and the Reddit community has been very nice to me. I really appreciate it. Coworker bought a low flow shower head. He filled the bathtub using the new low flow shower head because it would use less water. 500 IQ. While driving from one big city to another, I stopped in a small town to eat at a fast food chain in Texas. I order my food, get my orange number tent and sit down to wait for my order. The lady who's bringing out orders has this I give up demeanor as she's calling out numbers that guests aren't claiming. Each time this happens, she speaks to a couple tables to seemingly figure out who food is for. Then I hear her call for number 55 while holding a tray of food for one person. I was number 54 and noticed I was the only single party guest there. We make eye contact and she heads towards me. She confirms my order with me and says sorry. For some reason the computer prints one number higher. I immediately ask, well then why don't you just call out one number lower than what's printed? She freezes and I can see the gears turning in her head. I tell her thank you and she goes on her way. I'm an identical twin and have been asked all manner of utterly ridiculous questions about it throughout my life. But I think the stupidest was when a girl once asked me, do you ever get yourselves mixed up with each other? I responded, are you asking me if I ever sometimes think I'm my brother? She replied, yeah. No, I don't. My brother and I used to work as grocery baggers. Home day, were working adjacent checkouts. A customer saw us and asked if we were twins. I answered yes and her follow-up question was mind-blowing. Are you brothers? No mom, just twins. The time I watched someone who had missed their exit on the highway stop on the shoulder, back up, turn around, and go up the entrance ramp. I could not ducking believe it. Edit. A couple of fun details about this incident to really highlight its stupidity. The next exit was a few miles up the road. Going to that exit and then turning around might have delayed their drive by 15 minutes tops. There was no traffic ahead. I watched this person do this as I was coming down that same entrance ramp to get onto the highway. I work for Parks Canada in Yoho National Park. I have been asked the question, seriously, where do you keep the animals at night? Twice in my career. To this day I still find great joy imagining what they thought was going on each night as we collected every large animal in the parks. This was my first experience in retail, where I learned what many customers would be like. Seasons were changing, so we put a lot of shirts we had to get rid of in the front and made them 50% off. I was working the register when a woman came up to buy her things. I rang her up and could see a look on her face like something was wrong. That's when the following happened. Lady, why is this so much? Me, pardon me, lady, this should only be $10 not $20. I thought that maybe her item was on sale. So I asked if she could point out the sign, because I wasn't aware of it. It was a small store and we didn't have to walk anywhere. Lady, this sign here. Me, this sign says that all shirts are 50% off. Lady, yes. So why is this full price? Me, this is a hat. Back when the Fukushima nuclear power plant disaster happened, we were discussing how the reactor had failed in a science class. 5 minutes into the conversation, a girl piped up and said, I don't see what the big deal is. Why can't we just regrow it? She deadass thought a nuclear power plant was a plant. I was a co-hostess with a girl in a restaurant, watching ads on a hanging TV for a new movie. At the end, it said coming soon to a theater near you. To which she turned to me with wide eyes and genuinely asked, how do they know where I live? Edit, there are so many more stories about this chick, but this one summed it up the best. She also had to stop walking to drink anything, or she'd fall over, and didn't understand that not all women have to wax their mustaches, because not all women have them. She was 20. Summer camp counselor made all the kids on a school bus keep the windows up on a hot day because they could feel the air conditioning coming from the front of the bus. It was so hot, and I, maybe 10 years old at the time, had to explain to the 40-year-old counselor that the air conditioning they were feeling was the wind coming in through the bus driver's open window. She still didn't believe me. I begged her to ask the bus driver to confirm the bus did not have air conditioning, but she didn't want to bother him while he was driving. It was like a 1-hour bus trip. She finally got hot enough and asked the bus driver if the bus had air conditioning, and he jokingly said the bus only has air conditioning when the windows are down and the wheels are turning. She then looked back at me and said, see, I told you the bus had air conditioning, and proceeded to force us to keep the windows up. We asked our classmate to prove she knew the 7 continents. Her list went like this: North America, Europe, China, the Pacific Ocean. I shit you not. Watching a man try to open the locked front door of my shop while a bright red closed sign was literally inches from his face. He kept looking at the door like it was just stuck. There was a girl in my high school who forced the teacher to pause a documentary about people living in mud huts in Africa because she was upset that they were showing us fictional movies in a history class. It took everyone else in the room to convince her that people actually live like that in some places. Wealthy area living for ya. I was friends with a guy who believed those fake Apple adverts like Apple Wave, microwave your phone for instant battery charge. I was so dumbfounded that he actually fell for it when I saw him the week after, and he had a new phone. It all clicked for me. When I was in middle school, I was in art class with a boy named Devon. I told him my sister has the same name as him, and he asked me what her name was. When I was younger, I was mad that everyone else had an accent and I didn't. 3 years later, I realized that I did in fact have an accent, and that I was on another level of stupid. How much is a $50 worth? She was the newest teller my boss hired. Will never forget that moment. I've gotta say, I've said some dumb shit when I first start a new job. It's easy to go into I know nothing mode while also being so stressed your brain stops working. Knew a girl in middle school that didn't understand the concept of perspective. She also thought north was whichever direction you were facing at the time. Had someone ask me, is Europe on Earth? A friend didn't have coins for a vending machine, but did have $1. She folded up the dollar and forced it into the coin slot, and then did not understand why she did not get her item. For me, I had a concussion and was getting x-rays taken. They gave me a lead blanket to wrap around my twig and berries. I took it and wrapped it around me like a cape. I could not understand what they wanted me to do. Once in middle school, I simply could not get the concept of the phrase "the day after tomorrow" through to a kid. He couldn't wrap his mind around it. Edit. It's swell that many of you know the word "tomorrow." I'm proud of you. This incident was decades ago. I won't be sharing "tomorrow" with him anytime. I used to work with a girl who was sweet but so dumb. We were in a meeting once and somehow someone mentioned baked ham. My manager said, "Ugh, I hate ham. It looks like human flesh." The girl I mentioned was sitting next to me and looked horrified and whispered, "Does ham really come from people?" I worked at a restaurant and we had a dish that was just a whole grilled chicken, chopped into pieces. A woman who ordered for delivery called us, absolutely scathing, complaining that her order of one whole chicken only contained 2 chicken breasts. Had to explain to grown-ass woman that chicken only have 2 breasts. Edit. To clarify, the rest of the chicken was also there. She was just expecting more than 2 chicken breasts. She stated this clearly to both me and my manager, who she insisted she speak to over this inconvenience. A group of late teens sitting outside my building assuring each other that all criminal charges would be dropped when they reached 21. DUIs, drug charges, traffic violations, everything. I walked away shaking my head because they were in for a reality check. Me, when I was a kid, I had a real old transistor radio. Asked my parents for a newer radio so I could receive and listen to newer music. Rescued a coworker on the side of the road with a flat tire, waiting for the tow truck. I pointed out the nail at the top of their tire. They scoffed and looked at me like I was the stupidest person in the world and exclaimed, "That's not true, BC, it's flat at the bottom." I just walked away and never brought it up again. At the time I was working at a grocery store that had a co-insta machine. Basically you could place all of your unwrapped change in it and it would be converted for a small fee that you could use for actual cash. I was walking past and noticed a woman struggle with the machine. I stopped to help her. Turns out she had accidentally hit Spanish as a language selection. I quickly explained what she needed to do, figuring she couldn't read Spanish. We were in the US and this is where her struggles came from. So I run through how it works and show her where the receipt will print out that she can turn in at customer service for the cash. She turns and looks at me and says, "But I don't want Spanish money." Sigh. Then I have to explain to her that she would get paid in US dollars. We were talking about the Irish potato famine in college, and this one girl said, "Oh wow, I thought it was the potato family," as if that wasn't enough. She later asked why were they so eager to get jobs. If I was that hungry I wouldn't even try to get a job. Man, I wish I was joking. Ex-flatmate cancelled the gas and electricity contract because it was too expensive. Wondered why we had no more electricity nor gas. She thought we paid $90 a month to get a hotline 24/7 in case of problem. I had to explain to a girl why you couldn't grow your hair down in front of your face and just cut out eye holes. Even explaining it her, she couldn't grasp it and brushed me off as being too smart. Apostrophe. I had to explain to a woman that apples did not contain any gluten, meat, or dairy ingredients. How can one think apples contain dairy? She thought gluten was found in every major grain, and that apples were a grain because they have seeds. I worked at a vegan restaurant. Number 1 most commonly asked question: what are your potatoes made of? Do people not understand that a potato is a vegetable? Edit those wondering. Plain French fries. They didn't have batter or anything. Just your standard sliced, blanched, frozen, fried and salted French fries. I was once asked how it felt to come to the US as a refugee. I'm from Germany. She then looked rather surprised when I told her that Hitler has been dead for 75 years and that Germany is one of the more liberal countries in the world these days. She full on thought I fled Nazi Germany. My friend is allergic to walnuts. One day, he made this sandwich in our college dorm. It had walnuts garnished on top of the bread. I then remember him telling me, "Oh look, there's walnuts on here," and proceeds to eat the entire sandwich. At the time I didn't know he was allergic. I leave to shower, and when I come back there are 2 paramedics in our dorm taking him out on a stretcher. The following day I asked what happened, to which he replies something along the line, "I accidentally ate some walnuts which I'm allergic to, and by the time I went to get a Benadryl, my throat had started to close and I couldn't swallow it, so I had to call 911. I was just utterly shocked how he even let this entire situation happen. I really couldn't believe it. He had known there were walnuts on the bread and still ate it? College days. Am I right? Edit. He knew he was allergic to walnuts, but has very careless so it was one of those YOLO moments. Luckily I don't think he did that ever again. Once at my old job a coworker came out the back, and I offered him some chocolate someone had dropped off for us. He thanked me and popped it in his mouth, and then chewed it for a bit and cheerfully asked me, "Oh, do you know if there's nuts in this? By the way, I'm allergic to them, so I shouldn't really be eating chocolate." I was like, what? I've literally never seen a bar of chocolate that didn't contain the may have traces of nuts warning. Why are you eating this? And he goes, "Oh yeah, good point," and spat it into the bin, and then happily wandered back out the front like nothing had happened. In high school I met a boy who asked me for a hygienic cloth because he thought he had a period. Actually he only sat on a melted popsicle. A rolled coworker was telling me that there's people out there that think Alaska is an island. I laughed in disbelief, but another coworker overheard and was flabbergasted. What? It's not, but it's always drawn off to the side with Hawaii. Point made. Another time a guy with a really thick accent walked in. Same girl was like, "Oh wow, I like your accent. Where are you from?" Said guy, have a guess her response? Reddiculous? I've never heard of that place before. And walked away. She is super sweet. Just slightly oblivious. I teach high school English. I was working with a small 9th grade group and found out all 4 of them thought Alaska was an island. They were not kidding. I grabbed a globe to show them. One asks, "But how recent is that map?" I laughed really hard but discovered, again, that it was not a joke. This kills me and stresses me out in equal measure. Hey, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.